Wait. Oh, we're live now. Michael, thank you very much for having a few minutes to talk with me about your new film, which here in Mexico is called Demoniaca, but in the USA it's called The Dark and the Wicked. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Aside from the frigid temps in New York City, I am doing great. Doing
Y-
great.
You should come to Mexico. We're dying of heat here.
Okay. All right. Well, if you're offering your couch for me to crash on, then I'll be there. Should be there by 11 o'clock tonight.
You're all welcome here.
All right.
well,
Fantastic.
Well, Michael, let's begin with the interview then. First of all, I do want to know how did you get in the project? How did you got involved in the first place? And which were your first impressions of the script when you read it?
I was actually sent the script pretty early on by one of the producers, Sonny Mulhey, who I'd worked with previously back in 2016 on a film called In the Radiant City,
Mm,
which is actually the first film that Marin Ireland and I had worked on together, where we also played siblings. So we already had a little history built there from working together before. But Sonny had reached out to me and said, I have this horror script that I think you should read. And I said, oh, Sonny, if you know anything about me at all, horror is really not my medium. He was like, I think, just give it a read, give it a read. I've never been a fan of horror personally, just because I have so much fear and anxiety
oh,
within
really?
myself as an individual. So, I've never really been drawn to films where people are being chased through the woods with hatchets and whatnot. Nothing against those that are entertained by that, but I don't need that extra fear in my life. But I read the script, and it wasn't what I expected at all. First of all, it wasn't a straight horror. It was Brian had taken different areas of the medium. It's just as much of a horror as it is a psychological thriller, as it is a
Yeah.
family drama. And I'd never really read something like that I was considering working on. And the family dynamic, the subject of saying goodbye to a loved one, saying goodbye to your parents. I think that's something that we all have to deal with at some point in our lives. And so I thought that was a pretty interesting subject to dive into. And then, I had to watch The Strangers because it was Brian Bertino. And I was like, this guy really knows what he's doing in terms of working in the horror medium. The guy's a master. He knows exactly what he wants. And then when I found out that he had written the script in the cabin on his family's farm where we actually filmed the movie, uh,
Oh, okay.
then I was sold, because when I read the script, I was like, man, the farm and the cabin here really feels like their own characters within this story.
Yeah.
Ultimately, that's what ended up happening. So Brian had a very personal connection to the story and to the project, and I think Marin and I were drawn to his enthusiasm for that. And we wanted to help him tell his story as best we could. And what better hands to lay in than Brian's for a story like this?
You mentioned several things that I do want to ask you, but you left me curious with something because how not to take note about you're not a horror fan actually, but I do want to know if there was maybe a film that left an impact on you that maybe you thought, okay, horror is definitely not for me.
Mario, I'll tell you exactly what it was. I remember it very, very vividly.
Okay.
I was in the sixth grade, and I had a friend spend the night with me for a sleepover, and he brought a VHS tape of Faces of Death. I don't remember
Mm.
which one it was, but I remember there was a lot of chatter about this film uh, at this time, and it was, have you seen Faces of Death? You got to see Faces of Death. I grew up in a very religious area of East Tennessee. So um, these VHS tapes of Faces of Death going around our small community, you know, there was a lot of hubbub around it. I think parents were concerned, but my friend brought the tape. We popped it in, and I remember a head being smashed like a pumpkin. And I remember going to bed that night and absolutely uh, freaking out in my sleep and waking up in cold sweats. And from that moment on, I was like, "New, these movies are not for me." And as I got older, I was like, "Yeah, why would I do that? I already have, you know, anxiety out the roof. I don't need to add to it theatrically. I go to the movies to be entertained, not to piss my pants." So that was the exact moment that I knew this is probably not going to be a genre of film that I'm drawn to. But it's different when you're in front of the camera a little bit. It's
Sure.
you know, becomes more of a science experiment when you're in front of the camera, especially when working with someone like Brian Bertino, because you're watching a master kind of break down these shots, and you quickly see how many more shots it takes to sell a scare, and how much longer it takes to shoot a horror film, a psychological thriller, than a straight drama or a straight comedy.
Yeah, I do believe so because the movie it it doesn't have any of those cheap scare jumps that most horror films actually have, and that's something that I want to talk about on one of my next questions. But the first one that I do want to know on the film, your character is quite skeptical about some paranormal events, some of these more occult things that happens on the farm after. Well, I hope it's not a spoiler, but after the mother's death, will you say you are?
What? I haven't seen it yet, so I didn't know what happened. But thanks, Mario.
Oh man,
I'm just
no,
I'm just kidding.
I know you had to read the script. Will you say you're the same way in real life as your character?
Uh, no, no. I feel like Michael Straker, the character in the film, uh, is a lot more settled than I am. I think, you know, certainly a good old boy, family first, uh, works a job that he's probably not thrilled about, probably doesn't challenge him very much, but he's able to provide for his family, his wife, and his girls. And I think you know, they make just enough money to kind of scoot by. And I don't think Michael Straker is a big risk taker, obviously, because he's one of the first to want to get out of town as
Yeah.
quickly as possible. So no, I don't think there are a whole lot of similarities between my character in the film and I. At least I hope not. Maybe I'm just so in denial. Maybe we are the exact same person, and I'm just in denial and don't want to admit it. We have the same name though, so we have that going for us.
Great. Well, Michael, time's almost running out for us, but I do have one last question for you. And this one is particularly interesting for me because I have seen uh, many related films, at least on the locations that were used to. You mentioned how the farm become a character itself, but films like this are a fine example to me of this very American own style of Southern Gothic horror. But why do you think these areas of the United States are so related to these creepy atmospheres and wicked characters?
You know, that's actually a really good question. I think you know, what you find. I'm from the South originally, and I think what you find in the South is that a lot of Southern individuals tend to wear their hearts on their sleeves, and uh, maybe with the exception of whatever religion they're following, um, there aren't a lot of secrets, especially in small town southern communities. Everyone knows each other's business, so
Mhm.
it's hard to hide a whole lot when you're in these small southern communities. So it's kind of out on display for everyone to see, and you know, there's certainly an element of everyone wears their own mask when they go to the grocery store, they go to church, they put on the church mask or the grocery mask. And you're putting out there what you want people to think you are, as opposed to what necessarily you really are. um, I think there's an authenticity and a sense of being organic and genuine that Southerners can provide, at least portraying a Southern character like that. And then
Mhm.
the landscape itself, I think, this area of Texas is just incredibly open sky, and the resources of the South, I think, lend themselves to being helpful for film, cinematically, landscape wise.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I think that's. Did I answer your question? I kind of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. If
Well,
you say I did, then I did.
totally, you answered it. You got it, man. Michael, thank you very much for sharing these minutes with me. I do want to ask you, if Jaime is recording this, I do want to ask you for one small favor. If you
Sure.
can send a greeting and an invitation to the audience at Pólvora, which is the website I work for, to go to the theaters and watch the film.
Yes. Please head to the theaters. Go see The Dark and the Wicked. Do yourself a favor. Don't read anything about it. Don't read reviews. Don't read synopses or summaries. Go as blindly as you can. I promise it will only add to the experience if you go in not knowing what this thing is about.
Thank you, Michael. It was a pleasure, and I hope to meet you one day in person.
Yeah, well, let's do it. Well, I'm staying on your